Caution. In this video, we will delve into a bold and provocative inquiry. Putting God on trial. We will scrutinize his actions, weighing evidence to determine guilt or innocence. Drawing upon scientific, historical, and archaeological insights, we'll challenge conventional understandings. If questioning deeply held beliefs makes you uneasy, consider this your warning. This video may not be for you. It's intense and demands your full attention from start to finish to prevent any misinterpretation of its content. Ready to begin? Then, let the trial commence. Throughout history, humanity has turned to the divine for comfort and answers, often embodied in the God depicted in the Bible. For many, the Bible is more than just a book. It is a sacred link to divine wisdom, regarded as a heavenly gift to mankind. This revered text, the best-selling book of all time, continues to inspire millions, offering what believers see as a glimpse into the mind of the Creator, the architect of the universe, the earth, the stars, life, and humanity itself. At first glance, the universe appears to be a masterpiece of flawless design, a testament to divine perfection. But as we journey deeper into the Bible's intricate and often mysterious narratives, questions arise. Beneath the surface lie stories that provoke, unsettle, and challenge modern notions of morality and justice. Take, for example, the harrowing test of Abraham's faith, where God commands the unimaginable, the sacrifice of his son, Isaac. Or the total annihilation of Sodom and Gomorrah, leaving behind a legacy buried in history's sands. These moments are glimpses into a more complex and, at times, troubling portrayal of the biblical God, a perspective rarely brought to light. The God depicted in the Old Testament, particularly within the foundational texts of the Pentateuch, is presented not merely as a creator, but as a powerful and awe-inspiring presence, commanding reverence and even fear. This is a deity approached not just with love, but also with a deep sense of respect and caution. This portrayal raises an intriguing question. What other mysteries lie concealed within the sacred scriptures, waiting to be unraveled? When we analyze the actions and commands of the biblical God in detail, we encounter striking contradictions and moral complexities. For adherents of Judeo-origin religions like Judaism and Christianity, this prompts a profound inquiry. If God is wholly good, why do his actions and instructions sometimes appear controversial or morally challenging? Let us explore this further by examining key events from the Bible. The story begins. Our journey starts not at the very beginning of creation, but with humanity's emergence. Genesis 1:26, God creates humanity, declaring, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness." Genesis 1:28-30, he grants humans dominion over the animal and plant kingdoms. Genesis 2:8, humanity is placed in the Garden of Eden, a paradise meant for their sustenance and delight. Genesis 2:18-22, observing Adam's loneliness, God creates a companion, Eve. Genesis 2:17, God commands Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, warning that doing so will result in death. However, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. Genesis 3:8-9. After Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit, God seeks Adam in the garden, asking where he is. This seems puzzling. If God is omniscient, why would he need to ask? Genesis 3:11. God appears unaware of their disobedience, questioning Adam about eating the fruit. Genesis 3:15-19. After declaring the consequences of their actions, God makes garments for Adam and Eve, Genesis 3:21, and remarks that humanity has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. To prevent them from eating from the tree of life and gaining eternal life, God banishes them from Eden, Genesis 3:23. Genesis 3:24. God stations cherubim to guard the Garden of Eden, ensuring that humanity cannot return. This passage introduces intriguing elements. A singular God speaking in plural terms and actions that seem both protective and punitive. The next chapter. After their expulsion, Adam and Eve have children, Cain and Abel. Genesis 4:1-2. Cain and Abel take on distinct roles. Cain becomes a farmer and Abel a shepherd. Genesis 4:4-5. God accepts Abel's offering but rejects Cain's, sparking jealousy and anger. Genesis 4:6. God questions Cain about his anger, offering guidance but not resolving the tension. Genesis 4:8. Cain, consumed by rage, kills Abel. Genesis 4:9-12. God punishes Cain, cursing him for his actions. Yet, when Cain pleads for mercy, God grants him protection, marking him to prevent harm. Genesis 4:13-15. A turning point. Later, humanity's wickedness prompts a drastic response. Genesis 6:6. God regrets creating humanity. Genesis 6:8-9. However, Noah, a righteous man, finds favor in God's eyes. Genesis 7:12. God sends the great flood to cleanse the earth. Genesis 8:1. Yet, he remembers Noah and his family, preserving them in the ark. Genesis 8:21. After the flood, God accepts Noah's offering and promises never to curse the earth again because of humanity's flaws. A paradoxical deity. These events paint a complex picture of God, an all-powerful creator who demonstrates both justice and mercy, wrath and compassion. His actions at times seem contradictory. He punishes, yet protects, destroys, yet restores, and regrets, yet reaffirms his purpose. This depiction invites deep reflection on the nature of divine morality and human understanding. While God is revered as the ultimate source of creation and morality, the stories in the Bible challenge us to grapple with profound questions about justice, mercy, and the nature of good and evil. The Modern Critique. Richard Dawkins. These observations are far from new. In recent history, one of the most notable critics of the biblical God is Richard Dawkins, a renowned biologist and professor. Born in Nairobi, British Kenya, Dawkins has dedicated his life to exploring the intricacies of life through the lens of science. As an emeritus fellow at New College, Oxford, and a former professor for public understanding of science at the University of Oxford, Dawkins has made substantial contributions to both science and public discourse. He is widely recognized for promoting a gene-centered view of evolution, introducing the concept of the meme, and challenging traditional religious beliefs. In his widely debated book, The God Delusion, Dawkins presents a sharp critique of the deity depicted in the Old Testament. He describes this figure as the most unpleasant character in all of fiction, jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully. Dawkins argues that religion often contradicts its claims of moral leadership and, in some cases, could even be a driving force behind much of the world's suffering. Raised in a Christian environment, Dawkins's fascination with the natural sciences led him to question the teachings of the Anglican Church. Over time, he rejected religious beliefs, finding evolutionary science a more convincing explanation for the complexity of life. This scientific outlook underpins his criticism of religious traditions and their sacred texts. A balanced perspective on religion. While Dawkins's views are undeniably polarizing, they draw attention to the multifaceted influence of religion throughout human history. Personally, I partially agree with his perspective. I believe religion can serve as a profound tool for connecting with the divine essence within ourselves and the universe. Yet, it is undeniable that religion has also been a source of immense harm. Sacred texts often present conflicting messages, weaving together themes of love and hate, healing and harm, blessings and curses. This duality has led to religion being both a source of inspiration and a justification for countless atrocities. Moreover, Many religions assert exclusive claims to truth and salvation, fostering division and conflict. In this context, I find resonance with Dawkins' critique. While religion has the potential to uplift, it can also be a powerful force for harm when wielded dogmatically. Clarification for viewers. Before we dive deeper, I'd like to clarify a few things for those watching this video and engaging with this channel. The main focus of this space is the exploration of Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Mesopotamian mythology. We also take the ancient astronaut theory seriously here. However, I encourage those who are familiar with these topics to follow the discussion closely. This documentary begins by examining the God of the Bible, the supreme being worshipped by billions through Christianity. Drawing from recent discoveries in biblical archaeology, we aim to challenge the traditional view of Yahweh as a singular, all-powerful deity. I want to make it clear that I, Lucas, the creator of this channel, do not endorse or promote hatred toward any religion. In fact, I advocate for peace and respectful coexistence among all belief systems. I also support exploring religion and faith through a logical and coherent lens, grounded in historical and archaeological evidence. It is through this approach that we'll begin to question the traditional image of the biblical God and explore the idea that behind this deity's name, as well as the angels of the Old Testament, may lie extraterrestrial beings who visited humanity in ancient times. On a personal note, I believe in God as an energy, a force, a state of consciousness, and a divine presence within each of us. In my view, this concept of a divine entity is quite different from the God described in the Bible, which seems to have emerged from misinterpretations of ancient myths and scriptures. 2 key observations. First, Judaism, as a religious tradition, acknowledges the existence of other gods, but holds the deity revealed to Abraham as the supreme I Am. In Judaism, Yahweh defines himself with statements like, I am that I am who I am, I will become what I choose to become, I am what I am, I will be what I will be, I create whatever I create, or I am the existing one. These expressions highlight Yahweh as an all-powerful, unique God who embodies the divine in its entirety. Second, I personally find the teachings of Jesus to be more meaningful than the debates surrounding his name. I deeply respect the wisdom left by this great teacher, just as I do for other enlightened figures like Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. However, when it comes to the dogmatic aspects tied to Jesus, I believe they should be questioned, just as any religious belief should be, especially considering the advances in science and new discoveries. Returning to the discussion on God's judgment now, let's refocus on the topic of God's judgment. To explore this further, we turn to another modern thinker and critic, Sam Harris. Who is Sam Harris? Sam Harris, born on April 9, 1967, in Los Angeles, California, is an American philosopher, neuroscientist, author, and host of a popular podcast. He is widely known for his work across a range of subjects, including rationality, religion, ethics, free will, neuroscience, meditation, psychedelics, philosophy of mind, politics, terrorism, and artificial intelligence. Harris is especially recognized for his outspoken criticism of religion and is considered one of the 4 horsemen of New Atheism, alongside Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and Daniel Dennett. His debut book, The End of Faith, won the Penn Martha Allbrand Award for First Nonfiction and stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 33 weeks. He has since written several other influential books, such as Letter to a Christian Nation, The Moral Landscape, How Science Can Determine Human Values, Free Will, and Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. Harris has engaged in debates with many notable figures, including William Lane Craig, Jordan Peterson, Rick Warren, and Ben Shapiro. One key resource for understanding his views is the debate titled The God Debate, which took place at the University of Notre Dame between Harris and William Lane Craig. You can find the 2-hour debate linked in the video description for those interested. Harris's critique of a merciful God. Sam Harris presents a powerful critique of the idea of a merciful, all-powerful God, especially in the context of the immense suffering that exists in the world, particularly among children. He paints a disturbing picture of millions of children dying painfully each year, questioning how a compassionate God could allow such suffering, despite the heartfelt prayers of desperate parents. Harris challenges the common belief that this suffering is part of some divine plan. He argues that if God is either unwilling or unable to stop such suffering, then this God must be either powerless or cruel. His critique deepens as he addresses the concept of eternal damnation. Harris points out the inherent injustice of condemning people, often without their fault, to eternal punishment simply because they worship the wrong God. He argues that such beliefs are not supported by any evidence and are purely based on doctrine, which he believes is morally indefensible. The unfairness of the salvation doctrine. Sam Harris raises serious concerns about the lack of moral responsibility in Christian theology. For example, he points out the troubling idea that a lifelong serial killer can achieve salvation simply by accepting Jesus at the moment of death, while innocent victims face eternal punishment. This, he argues, highlights an inherent injustice in this belief system. Harris also critiques the double standards within religious belief. Many followers praise God for the good things in their lives, yet they excuse God's involvement in suffering by labeling it an unfathomable mystery. Harris suggests that this approach lets God off the hook for cruelty and injustice while still celebrating his role in personal triumphs. Criticism of divine command theory. Harris challenges the divine command theory, which claims that anything God commands is inherently good. He argues that this idea leads to a dangerous and detached moral view, where believers might justify horrific actions, such as the killing of children, simply because they're seen as God's will. This critique underscores Harris's belief that religious doctrines can be misused to defend atrocities, further weakening their moral credibility. The burden of belief. Sam Harris, a prominent philosopher and neuroscientist, has become well known for his critiques of religion, particularly Christianity. In his works, Harris dissects the unreasonably high demands placed on believers by religious doctrines, particularly those within Christianity, which, according to him, often defy logic and the evidence required for rational belief. One of the central points of Harris's critique is the doctrine of salvation in Christianity, which insists on belief in God as the pathway to salvation. However, this belief comes with an overwhelming lack of empirical evidence to support it. In fact, Harris contends that the very idea of salvation as described in Christianity is not only illogical, but deeply troubling. The absurdity of faith-based salvation. At the heart of Christianity is the idea of salvation through faith in God, a concept that is difficult to justify rationally. According to Christian doctrine, eternal life is promised to those who believe in Jesus Christ as their Savior. However, this belief is not grounded in any compelling evidence or observable miracles. While the Bible is filled with stories of miraculous interventions by God, such interventions seem to have become strikingly rare in the modern world. The absence of miraculous events today raises questions about the credibility of the Bible's supernatural claims. Harris challenges the logic of a salvation system that demands unwavering faith in a deity who appears to have ceased direct intervention in human affairs. The lack of evidence, Harris argues, does not support the notion of salvation as a rational or moral path. Furthermore, Harris critiques the deeply ingrained expectation in Christianity that one must accept the divine truths handed down by Scripture, regardless of the absence of empirical evidence. This belief, Harris suggests, is not just an innocent leap of faith, but rather a harmful demand that asks people to accept an illogical worldview and orient their entire lives around it. In doing so, believers often find themselves clinging to ancient doctrines, even as society and scientific understanding advance, leading to a kind of cognitive dissonance that prevents genuine intellectual and moral progress. The disturbing theology of Jesus Christ's sacrifice. One of the most controversial aspects of Christianity, in Harris's view, is the central belief in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ as the ultimate demonstration of divine love. Christians are taught that Jesus, the Son of God, was sent to earth to suffer a gruesome death on the cross as an atonement for the sins of humanity. This narrative presents the sacrifice as an act of unparalleled love, an offering that supposedly demonstrates God's immense love for humanity. Harris, however, challenges this interpretation, describing the idea of a human sacrifice as deeply disturbing. He argues that celebrating the violent death of an innocent man as the highest form of divine love is morally questionable at best, and at worst, it normalizes the very concept of human sacrifice. The notion that God, in his infinite wisdom, required the death of his Son to reconcile humanity's sins raises significant moral and theological concerns. If an all-powerful deity truly loved humanity, why would such a violent and extreme measure be necessary? Moreover, why should believers be asked to celebrate and glorify such a brutal act as the epitome of divine love? For Harris, the doctrine of Christ's sacrifice not only poses ethical dilemmas, but also has dangerous implications for how believers view suffering, justice, and the morality of actions. It seems to suggest that great suffering, even the suffering of the innocent, can be justified if it serves a higher purpose. This kind of thinking has troubling consequences when applied to real-world situations, as it can normalize suffering and human sacrifice as part of divine will. The dangers of religious dogma and scientific ignorance. Harris does not stop at theological critique. He also points to the deep historical connection between religious belief and scientific ignorance. Religion, particularly Christianity, has played a significant role in hindering intellectual and scientific progress throughout history. For centuries, Christian dogma suppressed scientific inquiry and rejected new ideas that contradicted established religious teachings. One of the most notorious examples of this is the Church's resistance to the heliocentric model of the universe, proposed by Copernicus and later defended by Galileo. For daring to challenge the geocentric view that placed Earth at the center of the universe, Galileo was persecuted and condemned by the Church. The history of scientific repression is not confined to the past. Even in the modern era, religious beliefs continue to influence and distort scientific understanding. Creationism, for example, is still promoted by some Christian groups as an alternative to the theory of evolution, despite overwhelming evidence supporting the latter. Harris argues that the persistence of such anti-scientific views is a direct result of religious doctrines that prioritize faith over evidence. By encouraging believers to accept truth based on authority rather than reason, religion has contributed to a culture of ignorance that undermines progress and the search for knowledge. Moreover, Harris highlights the historical role of religion in fostering violence and conflict. Christianity, like many other religions, has been used to justify atrocities and brutal practices, from the Inquisition to the Crusades to the witch hunts. Religion has often served as a powerful tool for political control, with rulers using divine mandates to justify violence and oppression. This pattern of religious violence is not confined to the past. Even today, religious groups around the world engage in acts of terror, all in the name of pleasing their gods. The moral flaws of religious doctrines. At the heart of Harris's critique of Christianity lies a profound moral objection to the system of beliefs it upholds. He argues that no moral framework could be more flawed than the one proposed by religious theists, especially when it comes to the Christian doctrine of salvation. The central idea that belief in Jesus Christ is the only path to eternal life creates a moral hierarchy that excludes billions of people from divine favor, simply because they do not adhere to the specific tenets of Christianity. This belief has far-reaching consequences, especially when considering the billions of people who have lived and died without ever hearing the message of Christianity, or who have followed other religious traditions. Harris contends that the moral exclusivity inherent in Christianity is deeply troubling. The doctrine of salvation creates a system in which those who believe are rewarded with eternal life, while those who do not are condemned to eternal punishment. This view not only leads to religious intolerance, but also places an immense moral burden on individuals, forcing them to wrestle with the idea that their loved ones, who may not share their faith, could be eternally damned. Such a system, according to Harris, is not only immoral, but actively harmful to society, as it fosters division, fear, and hatred between religious groups. Harris's final conclusion is that religious doctrines, particularly those of Christianity, often cause more harm than good. The contradictions within religious beliefs, the logical flaws in their arguments, and the historical legacy of violence and oppression make them fundamentally dangerous. Rather than offering a moral framework for living a good and meaningful life, Harris argues, religion often leads people away from reason, science, and ethical progress. For Harris, the future lies in a world where individuals reject religious dogma in favor of reason, evidence, and a more compassionate and rational moral framework. Why do so many believe in the biblical God? After carefully considering Harris's arguments, one important question remains. Why do so many people around the world believe in the God of the Bible as the one true God? If the Bible is considered a divine gift, why does this gift contain so many contradictions and controversies? To answer this, it may be helpful to look beyond the Bible itself and explore its origins. For this purpose, we turn to The Invention of God by Thomas Romer, a book I read and studied several years ago. Thomas Romer, a scholar of biblical origins. Thomas Christian Romer, born on December 13, 1955 in Mannheim, is a distinguished biblical scholar and Reformed minister. A German-born Swiss academic, Romer has made significant contributions to our understanding of the Old Testament and its complexities. Raised in a deeply religious Protestant family, Romer's interest in the Bible was driven more by curiosity than religious conviction. He studied theology at the universities of Heidelberg and Tübingen, where he specialized in biblical Hebrew, Ugaritic, and other Semitic languages. Under the guidance of his mentor, Rolf Rentorf, Romer began exploring the Jewish patriarchs in the Book of Deuteronomy and the history of the Deuteronomist. Romer continued his academic journey at the École pratique des hautes études in Paris, earning his doctorate in 1988. His thesis, Israel's Vater, used structuralist and historical critical methods to challenge traditional interpretations of Deuteronomy. He argued that the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, were only introduced into Deuteronomy in the final stages of editing the Pentateuch. After completing his studies, Romer taught at the University of Geneva before becoming a professor of Old Testament at the University of Lausanne. Since 2007, he has held the prestigious chair of Biblical Environments at the Collège de France. Throughout his career, Romer has received numerous honors, including an honorary doctorate from Tel Aviv University, the Prix d'Histoire des Religions, and he was named a Knight of the Legion of Honor. The Invention of God, Uncovering the Origins of Yahweh. In The Invention of God, Romer offers a thorough and insightful exploration of the origins and evolution of the supreme deity in monotheistic religions, Yahweh, God, or Allah. His research spans from the Bronze Age through to the Old Testament period, concluding in the 3rd century BCE. Romer presents a compelling case that, through historical, philological, and exegetical studies, we can trace the development of Israel's God. Supported by recent archaeological and epigraphic discoveries, his findings paint a clearer picture of Yahweh's evolution. According to Romer, Yahweh likely emerged during the early Iron Age, possibly in Edom or the northwestern Arabian Peninsula. Initially, he was a god of the wilderness, storms, and war. Over time, Yahweh became the dominant deity of Israel and Jerusalem, gradually overshadowing other gods, including the mother goddess Asherah. This transformation wasn't smooth. It involved moments of decline and revival. It wasn't until the devastation of Jerusalem and Judah, an event that deeply affected the nation, that the Israelites began to embrace Yahweh as the one true God of all creation. However, even in this new role, Yahweh maintained a unique, covenantal bond with the Jewish people. Romer's work challenges conventional views of religious history by revealing the polytheistic foundations of the Hebrew Bible. His meticulous research questions the traditional image of Yahweh as a timeless, singular deity ruling over all existence. The Bible's polytheistic origins. In the early pages of his book, Romer makes an intriguing point. When we read the Jewish and Christian Bibles, as well as the Quran, it seems as though God has always existed as the sole creator of heaven and earth. But upon closer inspection, we encounter texts that acknowledge the existence of other gods, such as the story in the book of Judges, where a military leader named Jephthah of Israel faces off against Sihon, the king of a neighboring kingdom. While Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all teach that there is one God who has always reigned over the universe, the Hebrew Bible itself reveals, if read carefully, its polytheistic beginnings. The God of Abraham, whom all three religions honor, was not always seen as the sole deity. In fact, there was a time when this God was not considered unique. Historians and archaeologists, however, do not focus on theological debates about the existence of one God. They are more interested in the physical evidence, monuments, artifacts, and historical records that help us understand the ancient cultures and religions. These researchers argue that the Bible's portrayal of a single creator God is not an accurate reflection of the past. Instead, they believe that Yahweh, the God of the Bible, eventually declared himself the one true God, supplanting the other gods that were once revered. It is well established that the Bible is not an original or divinely revealed set of books, as once thought. Today, scholars view it as a collection of texts influenced by earlier traditions that existed long before the Bible was written. Experts from various fields assert that multiple gods were worshipped in the areas where Yahweh would later be worshipped. They suggest that the worship of these other gods was gradually suppressed and replaced with the exclusive veneration of Yahweh, who eventually declared himself the one true God. When we look at the Bible not as a sacred text, but as a historical document, it becomes clear that Yahweh actively worked to erase the worship of other gods. He even threatened those who defied him and continued to honor other deities. Exploring the existence of other gods. But how could other gods exist? Was there an earlier culture before the Bible where these gods can be traced? The answer is a clear and emphatic yes. In 1849, archaeologist and historian Sir Austen Henry Layard began excavations in what is now modern-day Iraq. His work, funded by the British Museum, reflected the Victorian era's strong interest in discovering the cultural and historical treasures of the Near East. Back then, Nineveh, located in what is now Mosul, Iraq, was an unexplored archaeological site. Layard made an extraordinary discovery, an entire library believed to have belonged to King Ashurbanipal, containing around 30,000 to 40,000 clay tablets. The ruins of Nineveh were spread across two main mounds, Kuyunjik and Nebi Yunus. The library was located in the larger mound, Kuyunjik. Along with his assistant, Hormuzd Rassam, Layard uncovered numerous rooms filled with these clay tablets. Upon examination, it became clear that they formed the royal library of King Ashurbanipal, the last great ruler of the Neo-Assyrian Empire. The Library of Nineveh, a treasure trove of ancient knowledge. The discovery of the Library of Nineveh brought an incredible wealth of knowledge about the ancient world. The library contained a variety of texts, including legal codes, administrative records, literary works, and scholarly treatises. Among the most significant finds were the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Epic of Creation, two foundational pieces of Mesopotamian culture. The library also reflected the intellectual interests of Ashurbanipal, who was remarkable for an ancient ruler due to his ability to read and write in both Akkadian and Sumerian, the languages in which the tablets were written. These texts provided deep insights into the religious beliefs, myths, and cultural practices of ancient Mesopotamian civilizations. The library's contents also reveal Ashurbanipal's passion for literature. Unlike many rulers of his time, he could read and write in Akkadian and Sumerian, the languages of the tablets. These clay tablets represented three interconnected civilizations: the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Assyrians, offering a rich understanding of the customs and culture of the era. Among the tablets are records on trade, laws, daily life, astronomy, mathematics, mythology, and religion. The clay tablets themselves are remarkable artifacts. Made from wet clay and inscribed with a stylus, they were either baked or left to dry in the sun, a process that preserved them for millennia. Thanks to this preservation, modern scholars have been able to decode and gain a deep understanding of the sophisticated societies of ancient Mesopotamia. The discoveries at Nineveh sparked a wave of fascination with Assyriology, the study of the ancient Assyrian civilization, including its language, history, and culture. The clay tablets found in the Library of Nineveh are considered one of the most significant archaeological discoveries ever, providing unmatched insights into the civilizations of the ancient Near East. This vast collection of texts became known as the Library of Nineveh. The Anunnaki, the gods of the first civilization. One of the most intriguing discoveries in the Library of Nineveh was the revelation that the first known civilization did not worship a single god, but a pantheon of deities called the Anunnaki. Revered by the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Assyrians, the Anunnaki were a group of gods and goddesses central to the culture and religion of ancient Mesopotamia. They are often described as those who from heaven came to earth, sparking interpretations of them as ancient astronauts or extraterrestrial beings. A key proponent of this idea is Zecharia Sitchin, whose controversial theories explore the role of the Anunnaki in human history. In his books, Sitchin suggests that the Anunnaki arrived on Earth around 450,000 years ago. His series, The Earth Chronicles, presents bold and unconventional theories about humanity's distant past, drawing from ancient Sumerian texts and cosmology. Sitchin's perspective and the legacy of Enki. In the Lost Book of Enki, one of Sitchin's best-known works, the story is told from the viewpoint of Enki, an Anunnaki deity. The book explores the supposed influence of the Anunnaki on early human civilization, their advanced technologies, and their interactions with humanity. It offers a captivating narrative of these ancient beings, their social structures, and their potential impact on the development of humanity. For those curious about these theories, the Anunnaki Ancient Mystery Channel provides films that visually expand on Sitchin's ideas. These movies delve into similar concepts, imagining how ancient alien civilizations may have shaped human history. Scholarly disputes and mainstream interpretations. Zecharia Sitchin's theories about ancient Mesopotamian civilization, particularly his interpretation of the Anunnaki as extraterrestrial beings, have stirred significant debate among historians, archaeologists, and scholars of ancient cultures. His views, particularly as expressed in his book The 12th Planet, present a radical rethinking of the ancient world, one that challenges traditional academic perspectives. However, mainstream scholars generally disagree with Sitchin's conclusions, asserting that his interpretations are more rooted in pseudoscience than in genuine historical or linguistic scholarship. To understand why his theories are controversial, it's essential to explore both Sitchin's ideas and the established academic view on the Anunnaki, as well as the broader context of Mesopotamian mythology. The Anunnaki in traditional scholarship. In traditional scholarly discourse, the term Anunnaki is derived from ancient Sumerian texts and is generally understood to mean the descendants of Anu, or the offspring of the princely ones. The word itself comes from the Sumerian root An, or Anu in Akkadian, which refers to the sky god, Anu, who was considered the supreme deity in the pantheon of Sumerian religion. Anu was regarded as the god of the heavens, the ruler of all the gods, and a figure embodying authority and cosmic order. Therefore, the Anunnaki are traditionally seen as divine beings or deities that serve as attendants or lower gods in the divine hierarchy. Mainstream historians and archaeologists argue that the Anunnaki should not be interpreted as extraterrestrial visitors or advanced beings from another planet. Instead, they are part of a rich mythological tradition that includes gods, kings, and supernatural beings who governed various aspects of the natural world. According to this view, the Anunnaki are primarily connected to the concept of divine authority and are often depicted as the creators of humanity in Sumerian, Akkadian, and Assyrian mythology. In these ancient texts, the Anunnaki are associated with important cosmic and earthly functions, such as overseeing the maintenance of order in the universe, regulating human affairs, and acting as judges in the afterlife. The creation of humanity, according to the mythologies of these cultures, was not the result of extraterrestrial intervention, but of divine will and purpose, an act that reflected the gods' desire to establish order and civilization on Earth. Sitchin's theory of the Anunnaki, Zechariah. Sitchin's theory of the Anunnaki, however, represents a departure from these traditional interpretations. Sitchin, a writer and self-taught scholar, proposed that the Anunnaki were not gods at all, but rather ancient astronauts from a distant planet called Nibiru. According to Sitchin, Nibiru is a large, undiscovered planet that follows an elongated orbit, coming close to Earth approximately every 3,600 years. Sitchin suggested that these beings from Nibiru came to Earth in ancient times, seeking gold to help repair the atmosphere of their own planet. He argued that the Sumerian texts, when translated in a specific way, tell the story of the Anunnaki's arrival on Earth, their genetic manipulation of early hominids to create modern humans, and their subsequent establishment of a powerful ancient civilization. Sitchin's theories are built on a highly unconventional reading of ancient texts, including the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, and various Sumerian creation myths. He argued that these texts describe an advanced technology and knowledge that, to him, could only be attributed to extraterrestrial beings. His most famous claim is that the Anunnaki genetically engineered early humans as a slave race to mine gold and perform other labor for them. Sitchin's interpretation of ancient languages and symbols is considered by many scholars to be inaccurate, as he often relies on creative or highly speculative translations of Sumerian and Akkadian texts, without the support of historical or archaeological evidence. Despite the lack of scholarly consensus around his theories, Sitchin's work has gained a significant following, particularly among enthusiasts of ancient astronaut theories. His books continue to captivate those who are intrigued by the idea that ancient civilizations had contact with extraterrestrial beings, and that these interactions shaped the course of human history. The role of Anu in Sumerian religion. To understand the role of the Anunnaki in the religious framework of ancient Mesopotamian cultures, it's crucial to examine the central figure of Anu, the god after whom the Anunnaki are named. Anu, often referred to as the father of the sky, or the father of the heavens, was one of the most important deities in the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Assyrian pantheons. In the Sumerian creation myth, Anu is the divine figure who gives birth to other gods, and his authority is the source of the cosmic order that governs the universe. Anu's influence is also seen in his symbolic associations. He is frequently depicted as being represented by a single star, emphasizing his role as a celestial being linked to the heavens. His connection to the Maltese cross, a symbol that has been used for millennia across different cultures, is another indication of his significance as a cosmic and universal force. The Maltese cross, with its 4 equal arms, is often interpreted as a symbol of balance and unity, representing the cosmic harmony that Anu was thought to maintain. In Sumerian religious practice, Anu was venerated as the ultimate authority, presiding over both the divine realm and the human realm. His role in the creation of humanity was seen as an act of divine will, aimed at ensuring the establishment of a proper and just order on earth. This concept of divine creation was central to the Sumerian view of the cosmos, where the gods, represented by the Anunnaki, were responsible for shaping the world and humanity. The controversy and speculative nature of Sitchin's work. Despite the compelling nature of Sitchin's narrative, his theories face strong criticism from scholars in the fields of archaeology, linguistics, and history. Experts argue that Sitchin's interpretations of ancient texts are flawed and often deliberately selective. For example, his translation of the Sumerian word Anunnaki as those who came from the heavens is seen as an oversimplification that overlooks the rich religious and mythological context in which the term was used. The term heavens in this context is more likely to refer to the divine or celestial realm rather than to outer space. Furthermore, Sitchin's concept of Nibiru has been widely dismissed by astronomers. No evidence exists of a large, undiscovered planet on the edge of our solar system following an elliptical orbit as Sitchin described. The claims of extraterrestrial involvement in the creation of human civilization are unsupported by mainstream science, which emphasizes natural evolutionary processes and the cultural developments of early civilizations. Nonetheless, the fascination with Sitchin's theories persists, in part because they tap into a deeper desire to explore the mysteries of ancient civilizations and the possibility of contact with otherworldly beings. The enduring popularity of these theories reflects the power of myth and speculation in shaping our understanding of the distant past. The Anunnaki are deeply embedded in the mythology of ancient Mesopotamian cultures, representing divine beings linked to the sky god Anu. In traditional scholarship, they are viewed as part of the pantheon of deities responsible for the creation and governance of humanity. Zecharia Sitchin's theories, while intriguing to some, remain controversial and are not accepted by mainstream historians and archaeologists. His ideas blur the lines between mythology, speculative history, and pseudoscience, offering an alternative narrative that challenges conventional views of ancient civilization. However, the rich religious and mythological context of the Anunnaki in Mesopotamian culture reminds us that our understanding of ancient civilizations is constantly evolving, shaped by both scholarly research and popular imagination. The ancient Mesopotamian tablets, especially those found in the Library of Nineveh, tell a creation story that echoes the biblical account but provides a much more detailed narrative. These texts describe how the Anunnaki created humans to take over the labor once performed by the Igigi, a group of lesser gods. After this task was completed, the Igigi rested, similar to the biblical God resting on the seventh day. In Genesis 1:26, the Bible states, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness." This phrase has sparked much debate and speculation among theologians and scholars alike. It raises an intriguing question. Who is the us in this passage? Could this be a clue suggesting a connection between the biblical God and the Anunnaki? Could the creation story in the Bible actually be referring to the gods of the Babylonians? The term Anunnaki raises intriguing questions, particularly about whether it could explain the plural reference to God in the Bible. However, it's important to remember that the Mesopotamian tablets and the Bible come from separate cultural and religious backgrounds. While there are some similarities in their creation stories, drawing a direct connection between the Anunnaki and the deity of the Bible is speculative at best. From polytheism to monotheism. In ancient Mesopotamian cultures, The belief in a multitude of gods was a central and defining feature of religious life. This pantheon of deities, led by powerful gods and goddesses, each governed various aspects of life, nature, and human existence. Among these deities, the Anunnaki were especially significant. The Anunnaki were a group of ancient gods who were believed to have descended from the heavens and were integral to the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian civilizations. These gods were believed to influence everything from the natural world to human affairs. Each god had specific roles, and the relationship between the divine and human worlds was intricately woven into the daily lives of ancient Mesopotamians. In stark contrast to the polytheism of ancient Mesopotamia, the biblical tradition of monotheism presents a radically different concept of the divine. In the Bible, God is not only singular, but also an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent being, beyond comparison and entirely self-sufficient. This transition from a worldview dominated by multiple gods, each with different powers and spheres of influence, to the belief in one all-encompassing deity, represents a profound shift in human thought and religious understanding. It marks the beginning of a new religious tradition that laid the foundation for the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The historical and cultural context of the transition from polytheism to monotheism is complex and involves numerous interwoven factors. Scholar Thomas Roemer, a leading expert in biblical studies, argues that the concept of God in the Bible may have evolved through the blending of various cultural and religious influences. The development of the biblical notion of a singular, sovereign God was not necessarily an abrupt shift, but rather a gradual process, shaped by historical events, cultural exchanges, and theological reflections. One of the pivotal figures in this shift was the patriarch Abraham, whose life and beliefs are often viewed as a turning point in the history of monotheism. Abraham is traditionally considered the father of the three major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. His life and religious journey are central to the story of monotheism. According to biblical accounts, Abraham was born in the city of Ur, an ancient and thriving city-state located in Mesopotamia, one of the cradles of civilization. Ur was a city of great cultural and religious importance, and it was here that Abraham's early exposure to the polytheistic beliefs of his ancestors occurred. At the time, Ur was a cosmopolitan hub with remarkable advancements in architecture, writing, science, and religious practices. The people of Ur were deeply devoted to a host of gods, and their religion was intricately linked to their political and social structures. The great ziggurat of Ur, a monumental structure dedicated to the moon god Nana, also known as Sin, is perhaps the most famous and enduring symbol of the city's religious life. The ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid-like structure, was not only a place of worship, but also a center for administrative activities. Nana, the moon god, was one of the most important deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon, symbolizing wisdom, divination, and the passage of time. Nana's son, Utu, the sun god, and his daughter, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, were also central figures in Sumerian religious thought. Inanna, in particular, was revered for her role in creation and her complex, multifaceted nature, embodying both nurturing and destructive forces. As Abraham grew up in Ur, it is likely that he was exposed to these rich and multifaceted religious traditions. The gods of Mesopotamian myth were not abstract or distant. They were woven into the fabric of everyday life. Temples were places not only of religious devotion, but also of governance and social organization. Priests and kings often played overlapping roles, and the will of the gods was seen as directly influencing the destiny of cities and nations. In this context, Abraham's early life would have been deeply shaped by these polytheistic beliefs and practices. However, the biblical story of Abraham tells of a dramatic transformation in his understanding of divinity. According to the Hebrew Bible, Abraham experienced a direct revelation from the one true God, who called him to leave his homeland and journey to a new land. This divine call marked a decisive break with the religious practices of his ancestors and set Abraham on a path of spiritual and theological transformation. It is believed that through his personal encounters with the divine, Abraham came to recognize the existence of a single, all-powerful deity, a God who was not tied to any particular place, time, or cultural system, but was transcendent and sovereign over all creation. The shift from polytheism to monotheism was not a simple or immediate process. It involved deep theological reflections and challenges, as well as a gradual shift in cultural attitudes. Abraham's monotheism was not merely an intellectual exercise, but also a deeply personal journey of faith. His belief in one God was rooted in his own experiences of divine revelation and covenant. The concept of the covenant, which would later become a central theme in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic theology, emerged from Abraham's understanding of God's promises and his willingness to follow God's guidance. Abraham's encounter with monotheism also had profound implications for his descendants. His faith became the foundation for the religious traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, each of which traces its roots back to Abraham. For Judaism, the concept of one God became central to its identity and theological worldview. The idea of a singular omnipotent deity, who is both transcendent and immanent, shaped Jewish worship and practice for centuries. In Christianity, the belief in one God is foundational, but the understanding of God evolves through the doctrine of the Trinity, which posits that God exists as three persons in one essence: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Islam, too, shares the belief in one God, Allah, and it emphasizes the absolute unity of God, rejecting any division or association with other deities. In this way, the story of Abraham reflects a profound theological evolution, from the polytheistic beliefs of ancient Mesopotamian cultures to the development of monotheism, which would go on to shape the religious landscape of the Western world. The shift from a world populated by many gods to a vision of a single, all-powerful God represents not only a theological revolution, but also a cultural transformation that influenced politics, philosophy, and ethics. The impact of this shift can still be felt today, as the monotheistic traditions that trace their origins to Abraham continue to shape the moral and ethical frameworks of billions of people worldwide. Speculation on divine representation. It's truly fascinating to consider the possibility that one of these ancient gods, or perhaps an extraterrestrial being from a distant past, could have declared themselves the singular, supreme deity for a particular group or community. Imagine a time when early humans, faced with the mysteries of life, sought answers in the form of a higher power, only to have an entity assert its dominion as the one and only God. This shift could have catalyzed the worship of a single entity, which later evolved into the concept of the creator of the universe, an all-encompassing force that transcends any individual deity. Such a transformation would not only shape the religious landscape, but also the very way humanity views its place in the cosmos. Alternatively, rather than one God declaring singular sovereignty, it is also possible that a group of deities, each with distinct powers and characteristics, might have united under a shared symbol, name, or ritual. In this case, their collective influence could have inspired reverence and devotion from the human population, each deity playing a specific role within the larger divine narrative. This merging of divine beings would create a more complex, polytheistic structure, which over time could have been simplified into the idea of a singular, omnipotent creator, an idea that finds resonance in monotheistic religions. What makes this evolution of religious belief so captivating is the dynamic and ever-changing nature of the human relationship with the divine. Religious practices, gods, and their attributes have evolved significantly over time. From polytheism to monotheism, from animism to abstract conceptions of God, humanity's understanding of divinity has mirrored the intellectual, social, and cultural shifts throughout history. The gods once worshipped by ancient civilizations, gods who ruled over aspects of nature or human affairs, may have seemed as real and powerful as anything tangible. But over centuries, these figures were either merged, overshadowed, or displaced as the focus shifted to a more universal understanding of a single creator. The fluidity of these transitions reveals the ongoing dialogue between humanity's search for meaning and its evolving understanding of the cosmos. This journey through the evolution of divine belief leads us to a more profound realization. Perhaps the real culprit in this complex narrative is not an external deity, but humanity itself. As we come to the closing moments of this exploration, one truth stands clear. This is my truth, one I've shared in my writings, now available in Portuguese, with English editions on the way. I firmly believe that the grand architect of the universe, the true creator, is distinct from the gods we have worshipped throughout history. These ancient deities, with their human-like attributes and often flawed characteristics, were perhaps powerful beings, but they were not the ultimate source of creation. Sacred texts, including the Bible, as well as ancient myths from around the world, might not be recounting the story of a singular creator, but rather that of these powerful beings, whose influence shaped human societies in profound ways. These stories, filled with gods who engage in human affairs, displaying emotions, flaws, and desires, may not be the actual narrative of the universe's inception, but rather the reflection of humanity's search for divine meaning in the face of a chaotic and incomprehensible world. Take, for instance, the concept of God's judgment, particularly in the Old Testament. The God of the Hebrew Bible is often criticized for permitting immense suffering and death, for actions that seem morally questionable or even unjust. Many struggle with the idea of a creator who would allow such pain and destruction. However, if we dig deeper into the context of these stories, we may find that the deity portrayed in these texts is not the ultimate creator, but rather a being with its own agenda, sometimes acting out of vengeance or justice based on a flawed understanding of humanity. In this view, the blame for suffering and death may not rest with the ultimate creator, but with the actions of these intermediary gods or the failure of humanity to live in harmony with the laws of the universe. To understand the full implications of this, we must confront a deeper question. What if the ancient texts are not revealing the truth about God, but the struggles of humanity to understand a greater cosmic order? In this light, the moral failings attributed to the gods might not be indicative of a cruel or capricious creator, but rather a reflection of the imperfect nature of the deities worshipped by early human cultures. Perhaps the true creator is beyond our comprehension, a force that operates on a level far beyond human understanding, and the gods we've long revered are simply intermediaries, each struggling with their own limitations. This narrative of evolving beliefs is not only a historical journey, it is also a reflection of humanity's ongoing quest for meaning, truth, and connection with the divine. As we evolve, so too does our conception of the divine, moving from gods that resemble us in their passions and flaws to a more abstract, transcendent vision of a creator beyond time and space. And yet, the search for meaning continues, perhaps because, as we discover new truths about the universe, we are also discovering more about ourselves and the divine spark that resides within us all. The horrors of the past, though undeniable, were carried out by humanity in the name of God. The true responsibility lies with us. It is up to humanity to cleanse ourselves of the wrongs we've done and the injustices we've allowed to continue throughout history. May the light of wisdom and understanding guide our lives and shape our thoughts. May our search for truth inspire us to seek genuine spiritual freedom. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and share it with anyone you think might find it interesting. See you in the next video on the channel.